There are tributes, and then there are the ones that stop you cold. Bubba Wallace posted something this week that has nothing to do with racing strategy or championship points or trade rumors. It is just a man in genuine pain telling the world what another man meant to him. And if you have followed this sport for any length of time, it will hit you harder than you expect. Kyle Busch is gone. Two-time Cup Series champion, 234 combined victories across NASCAR's top 3 national series. The all-time wins leader found unresponsive at the Chevrolet Simulator facility in Concord on Wednesday. Gone by Thursday evening at 41 years old. Childress Racing confirmed his hospitalization Thursday morning. NASCAR confirmed the rest hours later. He leaves behind his wife, Samantha, and 2 children, Brexton and Lennox. The sport is still in the early stages of absorbing what that means. The tributes came fast and from everywhere: current drivers, former rivals, team owners. People who spent years feuding with him publicly and competing against him fiercely on the track. But the one that cut through the noise, the one that people kept sharing and returning to, came from Bubba Wallace. And to understand why Wallace's words landed so hard, you have to understand the relationship. These were not 2 drivers who simply shared a paddock. Wallace has spoken before about how much Busch's presence shaped his development as a professional. That is not common in any sport. The guy at the top of the mountain rarely takes time to build the people climbing toward him. Kyle Busch did. Here's what Wallace wrote. Not a press release. Not a carefully worded statement crafted by a PR team, just a man sitting with his grief and writing through it. He said his eyes hurt from crying. He said his heart hurt from the pain. He talked about being mid-race just days earlier and hearing Busch's voice in his head. A specific piece of advice about car feel and trust that Busch had given him at some point that stuck. That detail matters enormously. When a competitor is gone and the first thing you think about is a lesson they taught you while you were in the middle of doing your job, that is not admiration. That is influence at the deepest level. That is someone who changed how you operate. Wallace called Busch a monumental factor in who he is today as a driver. He said Kyle played a role in every single thing he has accomplished. And he said that is exactly what makes it hurt the most. Think about what that is really saying. Every win Wallace has had, every adjustment he made under pressure, every moment he trusted the car when instinct told him otherwise. There is a thread running through all of it that leads back to Kyle Busch. That is a legacy that does not show up in anyone's statistics. The 234 victories are on record. The championships are documented. But the careers that Busch quietly helped shape, the drivers who are better, more prepared, and more confident because he took the time, that part of his legacy will never be fully counted. Wallace also mentioned the super speedway connection specifically, calling Busch his drafting buddy on the plate races. That is a term of genuine trust in NASCAR. Restrictor plate racing at Daytona and Talladega is about partnership as much as competition. You choose who you align with based on mutual respect and shared instinct. Busch and Wallace had that. The response to Wallace's tribute was immediate. Fans who have followed this sport for years recognize something real in what he wrote. There was no performance in it, no carefully constructed narrative, just a driver who spent years learning from one of the best who ever did it, sitting with the weight of what that loss actually means on a personal level. Rowdy Nation, the fan base Busch spent 2 decades building, reached back to Wallace directly, thanking him for the honesty, thanking him for making the tribute feel human rather than ceremonial. That exchange between a grieving driver and a grieving fan base is the kind of thing that reminds you why people connect to this sport the way they do. It is not always about the racing. 2 ways this chapter develops from here. Best case, the outpouring from drivers like Wallace becomes the foundation of something lasting. Kyle Busch Motorsports continues as a development program. The drivers who came through his organization carry his mentorship forward and pay it to the next generation. The way Busch invested in people becomes part of how this sport defines its own culture going forward. His influence compounds across decades of careers he will never see. Worst case, the grief fades faster than the sport is ready for. The tribute weekend at Charlotte becomes the peak of the acknowledgement and the deeper story. The mentor, the teacher, the man behind the wins record gets buried under the next news cycle. Wallace's tribute and others like it get filed away rather than built upon. And a generation of drivers who owe part of their identity to Kyle Busch never fully articulates what that debt means. The sport's job right now is to make sure it is the first path and not the second. Bubba Wallace did not write a speech this week. He wrote the truth. And the truth was that Kyle Busch was not just the measuring stick for what a NASCAR driver could achieve on the track. He was a standard for what it looked like to invest in the people around you, quietly, without fanfare, through a piece of advice mid-race, or a conversation in the garage that a younger driver never forgot. 234 wins tells you what he did. Bubba Wallace's tears tell you who he was. Here is the question we leave with you today. Beyond the championships and the records, which driver do you think Kyle Busch shaped the most? Whose career looks completely different because Busch was in it? Say the name below. This community knows this sport better than anyone. And if you want to stay with SPORTSWIRE USA as we continue covering every chapter of this story, hit subscribe. We will be here.